Good morning, Wayfarers. This is probably a little different for you. You're used to seeing us in dead malls, and actually you're used to not even seeing us. And today, you're not only going to see us, you're going to see a project that we're working on. This is a new series that we're going to start. We like to renovate old stuff, upcycle it. And so this is actually a very special piece today. This is a French baker's rack that actually came from my great-grandparents' house. They got it back when they were living in Los Angeles in the mid 20th century. And then when they died in the late 90s, my mom took it from when they were kind of getting rid of everything. And my parents are moving on. And so we actually now have inherited this piece. And so today you can see that it's not in great shape. And it used to look great. It used to look really great. But right now, it doesn't look so great. The brass is all tarnished. The paint is all coming off, and it was almost all gone. Where it has been living outside, it used to live inside. Now it's outside. It has gotten very rusty. And so our goal with this is we're going to basically kind of try to clean it and restore it. And it's going to live over there on that patio, and my plants are going to live on it. So join us, and you're going to kind of watch us put this back together. It's probably close to, at this point, about 100 years old. And it is genuine wrought iron. This is all wrought iron. This is real brass. It's very hard to tell because of how tarnished it is. You can see how green it is. And as I touch this, everything just kind of falls off of my hands. You should have seen us trying to move this here. It was like the Beverly Hillbillies in more ways than one. So if you look right down here on the feet part of it, it says EC, and then it's kind of hard to tell. Maybe as we kind of clean it up better, we'll be able to tell, but I definitely see Paris. And so our goal here is going to be that this all needs to be restored. You can see how tarnished and green this is all gotten. You can see it's turning my hands kind of rusty as I'm touching it. This real here kind of crusts off in my hands as I'm touching it. So we're going to have to sand all of this down. This was probably never meant to be outside. I, was a kid in the late 80s, early 90s, and so I remember this being in their kitchen when I would go over to my great-grandparents' house. This was in their kitchen, and if you've ever seen the table from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, they had that exact table next to it, and she had plants all over it and streaming down, and you can see my mom kind of did too in some of the pictures that we'll show you. And so that's my goal too. I feel like it's meant to have plants on it, and so my goal is to be able to let it live outside because I don't have any room for it in my house inside, and so it's going to live outside. It's going to live on the patio right over there with all those plants that are on the ground. Some of them are going to get to live on it, but I want to outside proof it, and so that's the goal with this project. These pegs up here are bent. I can't remember if they are supposed to be bent, and so we'll think about maybe straightening those out. I'm not sure. I have to do a little thinking on that. You can see right here that it is kind of rusted through and it's kind of shaky. And so we're gonna have to do maybe some liquid weld to get that to be more sturdy. One of the pieces of glass that we showed you out on the tarp is broken. That's why we have 6 shelves and 5 pieces of curved glass. And so that is going to be another project that we're going to have to do, is to get another piece of glass to fit this, or it just doesn't have a piece of glass on it, which could be cool. We may put like a taller plant maybe down on the bottom and then have it kind of come through, and then you wouldn't necessarily need a piece of glass. So it's all about thinking about that. I'm not trying to restore this into factory new. It's impossible. I mean, this is a 100-year-old piece that's been beat up and moved hundreds of miles multiple times. And so the goal is just to make it last and to make it something, I'm not looking to sell this. I'm not looking to flip it or anything like that. This is not flea market flip. This is restoring a family heirloom piece. And so we're going into it with that in mind, is just trying to make it so that it will last another 100 years, because this is a good piece and we want to make sure that we take care of it. And what we want to do now is we're going to take these wire brushes that we bought. We have a couple of different sizes. So I've got a big one, I've got a little one, I've got a big brass one, and I think I've got even a little brass one. And these are softer, so some of them are softer because we don't want to scratch this brass when we do it. We want to kind of be nice to it, but the paint we can be a little harder on. And because this is PPE, we've learned about PPE, we want to be safe. And so we're all going to mask up and we're going to glove up when we do this. And so let's get going. So this is what a lot of this job has been so far, of kind of getting the paint off. And you can see as I touch it with the brush, it's all just coming kind of right off. And we'll clean this up when we're done, but we're working kind of from the top to the bottom, just working our brushes through. And like I said, this paint comes right off. Now you have to keep in mind that this is probably 100-year-old paint. And that's why we're wearing the masks and the gloves, because, you know, I gotta believe there's probably nothing good in this paint that we want to be inhaling. And so the goal is to get as much of it off as possible, and then we'll clean it up, and then we can go on, and maybe we might need to do a little extra sanding in certain places. But I'm really surprised how well that the brush is taking care of most of it. And it's in pretty good shape. You know, as we've been going, we've kind of identified a couple of spots that might need some welding, and that was kind of the goal of cleaning it up and brushing it off, as we wanted to see where there were structural problems that we were going to need to fix. And so that's kind of what we're doing right now, is just brushing off all this extra paint, this old paint and dust and spider webs and all sorts of other stuff. So we're at the point now where we've brushed everything and there's really not too much left. You remember before when I showed it to you, well, that's not a good example, but
we missed a spot.
We missed a spot. Other than that, we're at the point now where there's really not that much left that's loose. You can see on the ground there that we've knocked a good amount of this old paint off. There is still a little bit left, and so we think what our next step is going to be is we are going to try some paint thinner, lighter on the bottom, a little heavier on the top, and just see kind of what else we can get off of it. The goal is not to get it down to bare bones. The goal is just to try to get as much of the old paint off as possible and to expose as much of the rust as possible so that we can make sure that we seal it so that it has the best chance to continue to live outdoors. We've pretty much brushed everything we're gonna brush. And now, we had originally thought about using a paint stripper to try to get off the rest of what's kind of still on here. But we're concerned that A, we don't have the right stuff because we don't know what we're doing. And B, that we do have the right stuff and it's gonna be too much, or that it's just not gonna work the way we want it to. And C, or it might work, we don't know.
We don't know, but we're supposed to test it on a small area to start anyway.
So we're gonna start with one of these grates, and we're gonna test it on this one because you can see that there is still some black paint on it that doesn't come off with the brush, or at least didn't come off with my expert level brushing. And so we are going to try the paint stripper and see if any more of it comes off. And then if no more of it comes off, we will try sandpaper. And then after that, that's about all we're doing. So
paint will cover everything.
Yeah. This is more than most people do.
So I'm gonna gear up. I'm gonna put on all the PPE, the respirator and all that, because this paint stripper has some nasty fumes, and we're gonna test this piece out and we'll show you what happens. So I've opened up the paint and epoxy remover here. I'm gonna pour some into this metal bowl. It looks like it's clear-ish liquid. It's kind of thick. I think it's supposed to stick to the surface you're putting it on. I'm gonna put that out in the sun for now. Put the remover onto my brush. Got a nice coating on there, and it says to brush on in one direction. I'm just going to kind of go like that. Since I can't flip this, we're just gonna we'll experiment on this side first. I mean, I guess I could flip it.
Well, again, we're testing. I mean, I don't know if testing means the whole piece or testing just means like, let's see what happens. Because, I mean, if this goes really bad, this can just be the piece be like flip upside down at the bottom and
okay,
never speak of again.
Okay. Now, all right, we have it applied. I'm gonna step back. We're gonna set a timer for 15 minutes, and then we're gonna check this out. All right, so it's been 15 minutes. So I want to start. See, we got some peeling and some other action here. So let's see what will come off. I want to just do a quick scrub with a scouring pad kind of thing here. And let's see what kind of a difference we get. I'm using acetone, which is a solvent, to try to remove the residue that was left from the paint stripper. And it is cutting some of the little flakes off that are kind of left after the paint rippled. We're seeing more of the original metal. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be worth it to do this to the entire piece.
But it's a proof of concept that if you wanted to do it,
you could. But I also didn't imagine exactly how much work that would be.
Brushing the whole thing down already was enough work.
It was a lot. And I still have to sand today.
Yeah.
Alright, so we just got to sanding, and how's that coming?
It actually is taking it pretty much right off. I mean, you can see how the silver is coming back out. You know, the metal green, you know, the metal color is coming back out. I mean, it's pretty much having the exact same result that all the chemicals did, just without all the chemicals.
Just takes a little more elbow grease.
Well, and I mean, we were going to have to go over it twice if we were doing chemicals anyway. We were going to have to go over with the paints, you know.
And then to clean the paint stripper off.
Clean the paint stripper off, and then you've got all of that going everywhere. I mean, you're still having everything going everywhere, but this mulch has already got, you know, tires and stuff in it, so I don't really care if it's got more of this paint stuff in it. We're going to pull it up anyway eventually. So, anyway, so sandpaper works just fine. And I mean, what was this grit? This is 120?
This is the medium grit, and then we do a fine grit, and then it should be ready to paint after that.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I mean, it's taking it right off. So I mean, skip the chemicals. Just, I mean, you're gonna have to go over it by hand every piece anyway. Just do it once and do it with the sandpaper. I mean, the brushes took most of it off. This is just taking what the brushes didn't take off. So I think we had the right idea to start with the brushes. I think we probably could have skipped the paint thinner and the acetone. You know, I'm glad that we only did one.
Oh, that just came right off. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we only really did one piece with it, because I mean, I'm not even really pushing that hard, and I ripped one of the pieces in half so that I could kind of get around and into the crevices easier. I mean, honestly, your hand is the best tool ever created.
That's great.
So
that's
we'll
great.
just go with that.
All right.
Yeah, and you know, and then we'll kind of hose this off, wipe it off.
Yep.
And then I think it'll be definitely ready for paint. Whatever doesn't come off at that point
is just going to get painted over.
It's part of it at this point.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Very cool.
Clearly, we're losing daylight very fast. We're probably maybe 15 minutes from complete darkness. And so what we've done is we have sanded. We did the brush. We sanded the entire thing with a medium grit. We sanded the entire thing with a fine grit. We're going to come back tomorrow and do the brush over the brass and kind of try to clean up the brass. We've also got all of the shelves down here that need to be sanded, all of those. And so right now what we're going to do is hose it off to get all the dust off, let it dry. We have some weld stuff that we're going to put in here, like we talked about before, that we want to kind of shore up some of these places that are a little wobbly, and then we will cover it with a tarp after a little while, let it sleep for the night. We are going to sleep for the night, and then we will get started tomorrow morning.